Merrill Reese. Merrill, am I right? It's not so much that the Eagles the last 3 weeks have sputtered a little bit. It's more because the injuries at key positions, Devonta Maddox, Lane Johnson, now going into this weekend, Josh Sweat not going to be there. The loss of CJ was great to see that they opened this practice window up. But it's kind of given a little bit of a pause going into the postseason. Do you think they have momentum heading into this Giants game?
Well, yes and no. That momentum would not be the word when you're coming off of 2 consecutive losses, Dan. But I think they're in pretty good shape. I get the feeling that it's going to be Jalen Hurts this Sunday, and that's a big plus. I mean, what Nick said this morning was that he is on track to play. And he practiced the last few days. I was out of practice yesterday. He threw the ball well. I can't imagine that he won't be starting this game. And then take into consideration the fact that the Giants will be most likely, from everything I hear, they'll be starting backups. I can't imagine that they're going to use Daniel Jones. I can't imagine that they're going to use Saquon Barkley and some of the others because they are locked in to that 6th seed. There's nothing to be gained. There's nothing to be lost. And for the Eagles, there's so much to be gained.
Merrill, do you agree managing this game may be more formidable than what people think? Because when do you pull guys? When do you start guys? All that stuff has to play a factor here. Do you think that we're going to see – how do you think this is going to play out? Do you think you'll see Jalen and the first guys a long time in this game? Or are they going to manage this game? Because it's going to be interesting.
I think you will see Jalen and the first unit as long as they have to play, until they are sure, until they are 100% sure that this game is locked up. If the Eagles have a 24-point lead midway through the third quarter, I think out they'll come.
The injuries, they concern you though, right? Going into not so much the Giant game, but how this team is going to look they really need that rest, in my opinion. Are you concerned about a lot of key position guys being banged up, and most notably Lane?
No, because I think Jalen is just about ready to go. If not 100%, I think he's healthy. And as I said, he's throwing well. I think by the time the playoffs begin, he'll be 100%. They are also, it would not surprise me if C.J. Gardner-Johnson is back this Sunday. So he's close. You do have Dallas Goedert back. He returned a few weeks ago. So that's big. Lane Johnson has indicated to everybody around him that he has the torn abdominal, as you know, that he plans to play in the playoffs, and that he'll have the operation if he needs one after the playoffs. I mean, he's very, very tough, but that he feels he'll be able to play in the playoffs. And also, Devonta Maddox, I don't know. He's had the toe injury, so I don't know about that one. I do know that Robert Quinn could be activated. He's now put on that 21-day list, so he could be back as early as Sunday. And also, the guy who was kind of scary last week because he lied on the field for a long time, and there was the neck injury, Josh Sweat was back in the facility on Tuesday and telling Nick that he's ready to go. I don't think they use him this week, but I think he'll be fine for the playoffs.
Merrill, I got to say this about Haason Reddick. I was dead wrong because I thought he struggled at the beginning of the season, and maybe it was a new environment team. They didn't know really how to utilize him. But I'll tell you something, the last 7 weeks, he has been a force. And I say this to you. He's outplayed Micah Parsons in the last 2.5 months. I mean, you look at his statistics. He's got to be one of your biggest surprises, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought he was a great pickup. I didn't know that he'd be this good. I mean, I think he's the defensive player of the year in the NFC. 16 sacks, Dan. Dan, are you aware that the Eagles right now need 4 sacks to tie the Chicago Bears' 1984 record for the most sacks in NFL history? 5 and they break it?
That's insanity, too, when you think of that great team back in the day. That's Buddy's team. And to see the collective group, I mean, there's no Reggie White on that team, but it's a collective group. Do me a favor, Merrill. Go back to Gang Green and compare this defense with Gang Green. Any similarities? No similarities? A different group? A different style? To me, it just seemed that team had more of an attitude, but give me your take on the differences between those two.
Well, this team, Dan, is very, very good. It's number one in defense. They're ranked number one, and they're high up in all the categories. But to compare this defense to that defense is asking a lot, because you're talking about Reggie White, number one, the best defensive end who ever lived, perhaps. You're talking about Clyde Simmons, who was great. You're talking about Jerome Brown, who you knew from Miami, who was a tremendous force. And you're talking about the other guy would be Mike Pitts or Mike Golick. They alternated. And you're talking about people like Wes Hopkins and Andre Waters and Eric Allen, who was a 6-time All-Pro. I mean, from a standpoint of superstars, that defense had more. Now, Haason Reddick, as I said, has played phenomenally. Another guy who's had a tremendous year. You don't hear his name as much, but I'll tell you, he's had a tremendous year, is Javon Hargrave. He has been terrific. And then I just mentioned C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He should be back. He could be back this week. And I'm going to tell you something. He's leading me. He's been out all these weeks.
I know.
And he's still tied for the top in interceptions with 6.
That's insanity. All right, let me ask you a harder question.
I think he had 2 interceptions while he was on injured reserve.
Yeah, right on. Let me go here then. 2017 defense or this 2022 defense? Who do you think's better?
This one.
Wow. This one. Why?
Yeah, I just do. I just think they're. I don't know statistically, but I think. Yeah, I don't know that one was number one overall. I know one thing: they didn't have near the amount of sacks. The Eagles have 68 sacks, so they're leading the league. The second place team's like 20 sacks beneath them. That team didn't have that. So I mean, this one is. I think it's better than the 2017, and the 2017 defense did give up 500 yards in the Super Bowl.
It was Tom Brady, though, Merrill.
I know. I mean, but that basically was an offensive shootout.
Yeah, unbelievable. Hey, Devonta Smith, since we last talked, has had 88 catches. He's got a chance for the franchise record.
Yep.
He's had 1,100 yards. He may have 1,200 yards. He's really picked it up as of late, especially the last month of the season here. In your opinion, is he living up to the first-round billing since he's been drafted?
Absolutely. He is a tremendous player. And the fact that people wondered when they got A.J. Smith, would he lose receptions because you have a target like A.J. Smith? No, he's still having a phenomenal year. Both of them are. This team doesn't have a number one receiver. They have 2 number one receivers.
Merrill, 2 last questions for you. Explain this to me. Do you think that the offensive coaches sometimes they get so set in a system? And here, follow me here when I say this to you. So last week against the Saints, they run the Jalen Hurts offense and RPOs with Gardner Minshew, which made no sense to me. And then they have a hard time, it seems, utilizing an all-pro running back in Miles Sanders. He had 2 carries in the first half. I mean, do you think they sometimes, because they lean on Jalen so much in the run game, that they sometimes get away from Miles Sanders and don't stay committed to him?
Yeah, I don't think in the second half they picked it up, but he still didn't have that amount of carries. I think part of that, Dan, was that throughout the week, when you looked at the injury reports, he was in limited, and they talk about a knee. So he's had a bit of an achy knee, although I think this week he's back. and seems to be running fine. But Miles has had a great season.
You were right about this. Doug Peterson is going to get my NFL Coach of the Year award.
Mine
And
too.
I want to show you this, what you said about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence this year, 552 attempts, 367 completions, 66.5 in completion percentage, 39.01. He's on pace for 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks, 95 quarterback ranking. And this Saturday, Doug Peterson plays for a division title. I mean, he wins that and gets him into the postseason. What a turnaround, Merrill.
Yeah, I think Nick Sirianni deserves consideration, and I think Doug does too. 2 phenomenal coaching jobs. I mean, now everyone's been quiet for the last few weeks on Nick Sirianni, but remember, they are still 13-3. And if you have but you know what? I think they're going to pick it up Sunday, and I think they're going to go into the playoffs rested and with a head of steam.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens this weekend. Merrill, have a great call. I can't wait to see how the whole playoffs. I can't believe it, though. Merrill, how fast did this year go? It's week 18 already.
I know it is. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Merrill, thank you, my friend.
The other thing I just have to say, Dan, is that I think everyone in the National Football League today has a very, very good feeling in their hearts because of the progress of Damar Hamlin and that his prognosis looks so positive right now.
I apologize for not bringing that up and getting your take on it, but I want to throw this at you. Have you ever in your years and all your decades covering the sport, have you ever been moved like that by somebody injured on a field like that? I mean, have you ever seen, I mean, I can't think of the years even in the league and covering it, Merrill. Everybody was galvanized. I thought it was the best of America too, and how those responders responded to him. It's great to see what's happening.
It didn't matter where you were, what team you rooted for. You might not have even known the name Damar Hamlin before last Monday night. And everybody had him in their prayers, and everybody pulled for him. I think the medical people did an amazing job to get to him and treat him properly and get him off the field and do everything they had to do. It was the best of medical science. It was the best of people pulling together, and the outlook is very, very bright. That makes everybody feel so good that we can go into this weekend and think about football for a change.
Absolutely. Amen to that. And I second that. Thank you so much, Merrill. I always value your time, and thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
It's always fun to be on with you, Dan. Have a great weekend.
You got it. That is the legendary Merrill Reese, the legendary voice of the Philadelphia Eagles. Please hit the like button. We'll look at week 18 heading into the NFL. We'll give you our picks. Get your thoughts on them. Keep it here on a Football Friday on the National Football League.